So I am going to continue torturing you, partly because it will help you manifest, or it will kill you. And partly because I like it.
Well, people try to put us talking about my generation just because we get around. Talking about my generation. Well, they take you a couple. Talking about my generation. I hope I die before I get old. Talking about my generation.
The early 90s saw the X-Men rise to heights of popularity its creators never dreamed of back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Almost overnight, Marvel's menagerie of mutants grew like kudzu vines, eventually strangling most of the fun out of their shared universe. It was inevitable that other creative types would jump on the superhero team bandwagon just like they did back in the 60s, when the Fantastic Four suddenly made super teams cool again. And what's cooler than the letter X? Why, the number 13, of course. Dude, it's like totally awesome! What depressed teenager hasn't taken it for their personal talisman and lucky number of choice? Or was that just me? So when Jim Wildcats Lee, Brandon Deathblow Choi, and J. Scott Danger Girl Campbell sought to create a totally awesome super team for Lee's Wildstorm comics, it's no wonder they chose to call it Gen 13. And the fandom rejoiced. Most of that's due to the three factors that defined American comic books' dark age. The speculator bubble. There were, of course, 13 variant covers for issue number 1 alone, which has got to be some kind of record somewhere. Middle school gross-out humor.
My apologies, ladies.
And fan service. My God, so much fan service. It became one of the comic's best-loved features, and I half suspect this series and its fans created Rule 34 all by themselves, and this movie is nothing if not the brainchild of Gen 13 fanboys. The way I hear tell, writer-producer-director Kevin Altieri spent the mid to late 90s jumping through all the hoops separating this comic from the silver screen, eventually going so far as to put a chunk of his own money where his fandom was. Altieri used that to wring experienced labor and even more cash out of the only real game in Western Toontown at the time, Disney.
Gasp!
Never mind that Warner Brothers had won awards with its small-screen superhero productions. That was Batman, after all, and his animated movie tanked all the way back in 1994. Altieri must have known that, considering he spent the 90s working as a storyboard director for Batman the Animated Series, and he must have known Warner Brothers wasn't in the mood to make the same mistake twice. So maybe he pitched it, and they turned him down. Maybe he went straight to Mickey. In either case, he sweat blood to make a Gen 13 movie, and after all was said and done, everything went wrong. The movie itself is fine, but everything around it fell apart in 1998, when DC Comics, and thus Warner Brothers, purchased Jim Lee's Wildstorm. With this in mind, Disney suits scratched their heads and wondered, why in God's name should we put out 90 minutes of free advertising for some other media monopoly's product? So they shoved Gen 13 into a vault, where it might have remained forever if not for the wonders of modern technology and the few direct-to-video releases it received overseas, in places like Hungary, Brazil, Iceland, Germany, and Australia, where I suspect the animation house that made this film was based. Fortunately for everybody, I got a hold of the Australian version, because God only knows how this flick would play in Portuguese. So Gen 13 takes place in yet another wacky parallel dimension, where yet another secret government project is, of course, attempting to design superpowered soldiers, through an exhaustive regimen of illegal medical experiments and torture. The movie opens with a family of refugees from Same, led by Reb Brown, except not really. After their cars run off the road by the pursuing military helicopter, we see Buff Beefcake, Mrs. Beefcake, their tow-headed son, and their baby daughter flee the obligatory car explosion. Their pursuers open fire, killing Mom, and provoking Thick McRunFast to knock DeChoppa out of the sky with mind bullets.
That's telekinesis, Kyle! How about the power to move you?
Take your sister and go. Whatever happens, take care of her.
Ew. Looks like all those Bruno Mattei movies finally caught up with him. That's what you get for cage-fighting Lou Ferrigno. But surprise, assholes! It was all a dream, on the part of our real hero, Caitlin Fairchild, voiced by Alicia Witt. Who's that, you ask?
Get out of my mind!
Not until you tell them both who I really am.
Alia, daughter of Duke Leto the Just and the Royal Lady Jessica, sister of Paul Muad'Dib.
Yes, creepy little Alia's all grown up into a cartoon nerd, trapped in the Madonna horror complex dorm of stereotypical university with the kind of bitchy roommate nerds always seem to wind up with in college comedies.
Oh my god, it's past 6. Why didn't the alarm go off?
Because I turned it off. I was out late with, Bobby. Yeah, and I didn't get in until 3. See, most people like to sleep in sometimes, you know?
Seriously, my dorm roommate was a sexist dick and a wannabe frat boy, but even he never achieved this level of assholery.
Keep the noise down, will ya?
Despite being late for class, Caitlin stops to chat with her military stalker, who claims to have known and served with her dad back in the shit. Because of this, he's prepared to offer her a full scholarship to something called Project Genesis. Now I know what you're thinking.
Genesis? Yes, Genesis. How can you be deaf with ears like that?
Genesis allowed is not. Is planet forbidden.
Still, the brochure promises opportunities in science, so Caitlin's interest is piqued somewhat. Bitch roommate seals the deal that night after she kicks Caitlin out, so she and her latest man whore, Kyle, can play that special game they like, where he stuffs her in a refrigerator. The safe word is slam track.
Oh, Kyle, you are such a total madman. I'll be there in a second. I'll be right with you, baby. Oh, and Caitlin, give me 15 minutes. Okay with you? See, I wouldn't want you to miss your beauty sleep.
Okay, I take it back. My roommate was exactly this kind of an asshole.
You wouldn't happen to have a spare condom, would you? What was I thinking? Forget it. 15 minutes.
So, with visions of science dancing in her head, Caitlin's spirited away to Project Genesis, which, by contrived comic book law, turns out to be based in a skyscraper built on top of a mesa in whatever state we're in, since the background artists are no help. Aramexifornia? New Cali, Texazona? Arrakis? You be the judge. Caitlin's met on the runway by Helga, the project's resident nurse Ratchet, who's so outrageously German, Cloris Leachman must have turned the
Frau Blücher
up to 11. Helga gives our hero the nickel tour, allowing her to meet cute with the core members of her future supergroup. One is a bumbling oaf and big baby named Edward Grunge Chang, played by Red Hot Chili Peppers drummer Flea, as if you couldn't tell.
Well, truly sorry about that.
It's okay, just get off me.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The other is Roxanne Roxy Spaulding, played by Elizabeth Daly. The attention deficient among you might recognize her as the voice of green Powerpuff Girl Buttercup, but Daly's actually had the kind of career most people would slaughter goats for, going all the way back to her first role in an episode of Laverne and Shirley. She played Dottie in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, played Mambo in Duckman, Louie in Quack Pack, and Tommy in the seemingly never-ending series of Rugrats-related media, which still pays her mortgage today. Roxy is the group's plucky pseudo-punk, the hand to Caitlin's Luke. Grunge, on the other hand, is the odious comic relief, and Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. While I appreciate Flea's fandom, his inclusion here is the worst kind of stunt casting, the kind that really, really shows, particularly when he has to hold his own against actual voice actors, like Mark frickin' Hamill.
So, the young master can still be taught a few tricks!
You dare mock my Guyver movie?
Nobody laughs at me.
My favorite Joker plays Matthew, the project's head PE instructor, an all-around obvious bad guy. Since he's the only blonde in the movie, besides bitch roommate, we know at once Matthew is that towhead kid from the prologue, now aided in his villainy by the villainous Ivana, played by Lauren Lane.
Sorry to interrupt your session, Matthew, but... Oh, Matthew, not again.
What? Oh, him.
Whom you might remember from such previous villainy as Fran Drescher's TV series, The Nanny. Ivana's the project's titular head, and therefore the only one exempt from its otherwise strict dress code. Apart from Matthew, of course. After chiding him for his gratuitous maiming, Ivana turns Matthew on... No, not like that, you pervs. To the promising new student who just touched down. Matthew seems disinterested at first, but as soon as Ivana rings off, he flashes us a knowing and disturbingly jokerish grin.
That's it! That's what I want to see! A nice big smile.
Since there's no way in hell Disney's gonna let this one out of the house, I'm gonna go ahead and confirm your suspicions. Yes, Matthew was that towhead kid, and yes, the baby he wound up losing over the travel-sized waterfall is now Caitlin Fairchild. I went through the entire rest of the movie thinking that Joker grin meant Matthew knows this from the start, and only lied to Ivana about it in order to conceal the full scope of his evil plot to turn his sister to the dark side in true Skywalker style. The film ends up shooting all this in the head, so it can dumb itself down for the peanut gallery, but we'll get to that eventually. Time for the other thing that made this series so popular. Girl fights! And gratuitous shower scenes, filled with enough censorship steam to choke any authentic perverts in the audience. Not that it really matters, since Ivana just told us Kat is 18 and legal.
Her name's Caitlin Fairchild, 18 years old. High IQ.
So what the fuck, movie? Why deny us our cartoon tits?
We're not a bunch of virgins locked in a convent here.
In any case, Caitlin and Roxy trade exposition as some authentic perverts watch them on the project's surveillance grid. I never knew my father. I never knew mine either, though I heard he was a war hero. That's nice and sad, isn't it, though? Isn't this whole skyscraper on top of a mesa in the middle of nowhere thing kind of weird? Nah, you're just being paranoid. Kat's paranoia wins the night when sleep gas knocks out the entire student body, allowing Ivana and Matthew's cobra-looking thugs to plug everyone into the giant centrifuge and begin the experiments. Turns out all the kids at Genesis are scions of this universe's last big super-secret, super-scientific, super-soldier project. As we saw in the prologue, things didn't go so well for Generation 12, but that whole mess is long since swept under the rug. Ivana and Matthew have high hopes for Generation 13.
May I present Frau Blücher?
All the little Lieblings are tucked into the incubation tubes like larvae in cocoons, waiting to metamorphose into magnificent butterflies.
She attempts to win the last living Gen 12, Colonel Lynch, over to her cause once he drops by for an unexpected jet refueling. The Colonel's played by John Q. Delancey, who attempts to convince Ivana that giving random people superpowers really is a bad idea. Q's best Nick Fury impression is all for naught, and his last hopes of finding a sane head around this hollowed-out mesa die the next day at breakfast, when he realizes the Joker's already running things.
I was hoping you weren't mixed up in this. What? I'm familiar with your career as well, and I would have thought you, of all people, would be opposed to this kind of government experimentation.
Too much tentacle porn. Damn you, Roxy.
Let me help you.
At least he gets to say hi to Kat and Co. before he departs. I knew your father back in the Nam. This one time, we met this hooker in Thailand, and okay, bye-bye. Caitlin's headaches and strange hallucinations eventually culminate in a 2 a.m. Technicolor yawn. And I loved how latent superpowers cause so much physical discomfort in this universe. Too often people just wake up with tele, pyro, or psychokinesis. And Gen 13 still falls prey to this, since we've got to get those action scenes in here somehow. But it's a nice touch I appreciate after watching so many films attempt to distract me from this crucial time in the hero's formation with Flash. And speaking of which, Kat, Roxy, and Grunge end up following the self-lighting corridors into some manner of control room, because that always works out for the best. A stormtrooper finds them and gives Kat the pimp hand for daring to question his authority. Kat responds, as all pimp hand recipients should, and punches the masked fucker straight through the nearest wall.
Somebody make it
She looks all right to me.
Keep your thinking above your waist, Buster. Give her your shirt. Without looking.
More henchmen pour in, fuel for the fire, and I hope everyone at Project Genesis paid their monthly healthcare premiums. For reasons that'll be clear by the end, I also pray to God these henchmen don't have an on-site HMO. Here's something else the film gets right. Roxy and Kat are visibly shaken at the thought of actually having to kill people, even if they are just faceless henchmen. Roxy tries to be tough and console the more sheltered Caitlin that the henchmen were trying to shoot at them, and Kat had no choice but to rearrange their spines. The fact that henchmen are even allowed to die is downright revolutionary for a superhero cartoon of this vintage. Remember what Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker went through in order to protect the children from the consequences of violence? It's no wonder Gen 13 fell down the memory hole. Evil, got to tell you that I'm evil, most definitely evil.
Ivana, it's Matthew.
I'm evil, you know. Warning, the last 30 minutes of this film are totally and unironically awesome. So Grunge and Roxy raid some lockers looking for something to fit Kat, now that she's gone all Jennifer Walters on us. And since this is Gen 13, they can't find anything decent. Kat has to settle into one of the battle bathing suits that would become her trademark. At least it's not a bikini. That's something, right? Astonishingly competent henchmen bomb Roxy and Grunge into unconsciousness and blow Kat right down a garbage chute. Thankfully, this isn't the Death Star, so there's no trash compactors to deal with, just a pair of Cobra hovercraft.
Woo-wee! Look at her run!
Alia keeps pace with the storm.
At this point, Alicia Witt seems to have given up putting any real effort into her performance. That's Gen 13's major failing. Even the professional voice actors turn in uneven work, symptomatic of not having Andrea Romano to wring a good performance out of them. Sometimes Hamill and Daly are spot on, and sometimes even their lines crap out, so it's no surprise Witt can't make her cliched action movie tough girl dialogue work.
With a storm, their air power will be useless. On Arrakis, it's desert power.
Really, though, I don't even care. It's Caitlin Fairchild, and she's redecorating the great state of Nevada, I guess, in flaming scrap. No happy violence here. Just one nigh invulnerable girl and a secret base full of sad bastards who are all gonna get it now. No amount of mech suits, hoverboards, or semi-automatic missile launchers are going to stop her.
Dear me, my, what big naughty girl you have become, Liebchen.
Helga?
Yeah, darling, you Helga. I who have nurtured you, made you what you are, must now destroy you.
What's going on, Helga? What's happening to me?
That I cannot tell you, Liebchen. I can only say that too much blood has been spilled. Only blood must be answered with blood. You are my favorite, Liebchen. I'm sorry. Holy hammer!
At this point, even Wagner's looking down from heaven, being all like, "Damn, girl, you might want to dial that shit back down a bit."
Good night, Frau Blucher.
Meanwhile, Matthew's got Roxy and Grunge down in
my interrogation chamber.
Because he just has one, that's why. Probably had it custom built, too. But see, this is the problem with super secret super soldier programs. Too often, they're controlled by exactly the kind of person who'd build interrogation chambers in the first place. What branch of the military do Matthew and Ivana work for anyway? The same people who put William Stryker in charge of Weapon X? All I'm saying is the plot's contrived enough already, and I'd prefer my super soldier programs to be commanded by a General Ross, as opposed to a Glenn Talbot, though Matthew makes Talbot look like the douche frat boy poser he was in Ang Lee's movie. Watch him casually dismiss that anonymous thug. Out of the way, son. Watch an old hand at work. You never lose your touch. Aw, shit. Boss locking himself in the torture room again. Better call hazmat. And maintenance. It's the third time this month they're gonna have to replace that room. Meanwhile, Caitlin dons Helga's battlesuit in order to sneak back into the base and rescue her friends. It doesn't go very well. But hey, at least we get to hear Alicia Witt's Cloris Leachman impression.
That dog Fairchild girl is running loose down there.
Pop the hatch. Now!
Just a moment. I think the hatch is stuck.
And bonus style points for that dude you sent over the side, Cat.
I tell you what, better send Hazmat in to clean up the mess.
Holy shit, she's getting back up.
That mech suit was powered by my dead mother's soul, you bastards!
Target is moving. She's charging! Fire!
We've lost visual with the flight deck, ma'am. Reports are coming in of multiple explosions, heavy damage, and casualties.
Why is this so damn difficult?
In the middle of the fight, we see a jet take off, and that's not just some henchman with a high sense of self-preservation. No, it seems Colonel Lynch did some digging when he got back to civilization, and he's returned with a whole wing of fighters and a warrant to search Project Genesis. Make sure nothing shady's going on down in that mesa. Like, I don't know, say, gratuitous torture? Matthew makes the mistake of torturing Roxy, causing Grunge to rip off Metamorpho, I guess. You'd think a punch like that would cave in Matthew's ribs, but well.
You came to my rescue. Like you're my dude in shining armor.
Ah, young love. Screw it. More violence, please. And I love how Kat, even though she's been the designated super genius for this entire show, still tries to pull that old Looney Tunes trick in a pinch. Unfortunately, Ivana's comes topside to command this out personally, and she must have spent her childhoods watching the same cartoons Kat and I did. Grunge and Roxy show up, and while a whole line of guards might have stood a chance against Caitlin, they are helpless before the power of rock! Here Ivana finally unveils what she's been hiding under those opera gloves this whole time. Her mechanical hand, complete with razor-sharp extendo claws attached to at least 50 feet of industrial cable. Christ, the thing makes the fake arms in Star Wars look like the fake arm the one-armed man had in The Fugitive. Still, in the face of nigh invulnerable teenagers, what's a few cyborg limbs between friends? Grunge karate chops Ivana's off at the elbow, and then stands there like a fucking goof, flipping her off as she gets away. Dude, that's not going to stop her coming back, or escaping the film with all those other members of the project's student body. You know, the ones the movie forgot about half an hour ago, including the other two members of the original comic book team. Meanwhile, here comes the Q Continuum to save the day with guns a-blazing. You gotta feel for all the anonymous fools who signed up to the project's henchman pool, thinking Genesis was some plumb stateside assignment. Now they're fighting off a full-scale invasion from Faux Shield. I just wanted money for college! Ah! Our heroes escape amid the chaos by commandeering a helicopter and its pilot.
It's not really safe with so many... And you should have parachutes. What if...
Just fly.
Who, true to regulations, shows remarkable concern for his kidnapper's safety, right up until the moment Matthew intercepts them. He would have stopped him sooner, but he had to rescue his villain cape and regulation villain boots before the project exploded. They just complement his Joker laugh so well, it'd be a shame to lose them. Besides, head explodey. Proving once and for all it's not the quantity of murder that counts, as long as you make quality job number one. Roxy saves the day by finally manifesting her power of Tommy Pickles. Actually, it's Sue Storm's telekinesis, minus the light bending, because Well, Gen 13's creators worked for Marvel, and after they left to form their own companies, they knew just how far to push the copyright lawyers. Time for the big villain monologue about how the government made all the Gen 12s, and how it plans to use their children to finish the work it abandoned years ago. But with their powers combined, they could destroy that
corrupt, diseased government that destroyed our parents, and create our own.
With their combined strength, they could end this destructive conflict and bring an order to the galaxy. Our heroes laugh Matthew off, which is pretty damn insane considering Matthew's powers of head exploding.
Get out of my head!
How'd you do that, girl?
I don't know, but I'm not asking questions.
Despite all his years of practice at the art of being evil, the 3-on-1 soon goes Gen 13's way. Q arrives to break up the fun and pull a big reveal on us all.
This is the last person that you want to harm. Caitlin is your sister.
What?
Once again, a film treats the thing we figured out an hour and 15 minutes ago like some great trick it's played on us. And you're telling me Matthew didn't know Kate was his sister this whole time? What the hell is that Joker grin about? And why else would he even try to pull the old with our combined strength trick? On the people he tortured, no less. Ah well, Ivana escapes, like I said she would, grunge, and blows Genesis sky high as a fare thee well to our group. Q and the rest of our heroes also make it out alive, with Matthew getting the kind of ambivalent non-death reserved for reoccurring comic book villains everywhere. Colonel Lynch asks our heroes to join him in forming yet another super-secret super-soldier project. But don't worry, this one's 100% above board. Would Q lie to you? So, with a whole army dead in their wake, our heroes sail off into their next adventure. A next adventure that would never happen, and that's just sad. This movie kicks ass. From a technical standpoint, it looked cheap when it was made, and it looks even more so today, but I don't give a shit. Rare is the Western superhero cartoon that treats its subject matter with dramatic weight. Even the WB of this era frequently pussied out in the face of America's moral guardians. Why do you think the second season of Batman Beyond sucks so much? So it's a 90-minute superhero cartoon with cursing panty shots, 2 breasts, at least 1 pool of blood, and evil Mark Hamill being his wonderfully evil self. The first half hour drags a bit. It's loaded down with the usual 1.5 tons of origin story exposition, but if you can make it past Cat's Hulk out, you won't be sorry. Its second half goes balls to the wall, and trust me when I say I mean the following is high praise. It feels like a really good 3-part Saturday morning cartoon, from an alternate universe where the United States isn't plagued by uptight, tub-thumping Puritans who think Disney is the only name in animation. Anime fans might sneer, but they've got no room to talk. Hell, there's enough fan service in here to satisfy even their spoiled palates. And that's part of why I did this. This is me, sharing the fact that Gen 13 kicks ass with as many people as I can. Good luck finding a copy, though. God knows you can't have mine.
Why don't you all just fade away? And don't try to dig what we on. Talking about my generation. I'm trying to cause a big stand. Talking about my generation. Yes, I'm talking about my generation.